so we'll call it to order. So it's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. We're sixes. So I still expect Jeremy. I do not expect Patty because I told her twice not to bother to come because she wasn't feeling well, even though she was generously offering. Even though I could hardly understand her on the phone because her voice was gone. Additions or corrections to the agenda? I don't have any myself. Does anyone else? Oh, please tell me what I forgot.
11 minutes. I don't have the adjournment and the whatever executive session stuff. So those, I don't know.
Oh, I know. Who did those? Was that you?
That was me.
Well, we can actually add them and approve them, but we'll probably have to pull them out of the consent agenda.
Yeah.
So we can just, so that, you don't have them with you?
I don't think I have them with me.
We can approve them at the next meeting, that's fine, if you don't have them with you.
Yeah, I don't. I grabbed
That's okay. We'll just, so for additions and corrections, we're going to pull the 12, 11 minutes out of the consent agenda, and we will do those at our next meeting. And then you can send them to Sarah so she can resend them out.
Yes, I'll make a note now.
Okay, and then I think we can, even though it's not a regular board meeting, we'll be able to approve those on our brief meeting on the 30th before we meet with the public for the information meeting. So, okay, so that's one change to the agenda. Is there anything else? Thank you, Tara. Anything from the administration?
I know I am.
That's okay.
Okay, so we're moving on. Members of the public, we have no one here. If they come, we'll go to them. Correspondence?
Yes,
Thank you.
you have a letter. And the members of the board have received season tickets to all the Rebels games.
Oh, how nice.
Courtesy of our athletic director, athletics and activities.
That was really nice of them. We've had that before, but we haven't had it consistently every year, so it's great to have that. Thank you.
And stickers.
And while during handing that, I'll just say this is Ed Week Leadership Forums. I'll pass this around. That's what the Education Week Leadership Forum, that's what the correspondence is that came in our box.
Thank you.
If anybody's interested in taking a
We had to check at the last meeting.
workshop.
It's going to become a habit.
I'll give it to you
A
first,
perk
and we'll
every
pass it back that way.
Congressman.
Thank you.
I know.
And the one to Jeremy. Okay.
I feel like
I don't have any other correspondence. If you don't, Frank? Correspondence? Sorry. Okay, we'll move on to principals.
I don't have a report.
Yeah, I think actually we all knew that. Didn't we all know that there was no principal's report?
Sorry,
I think we did. No, it's fine.
Yes.
But I just didn't know if there was something verbal you were going to share beyond what I know you're going to be dealing with under new business. You'll be sharing.
It's been a great start to the new year.
Oh, good. So second semester starts
January 23rd.
Oh, 23rd. I was thinking the week before that. Okay.
That's pretty cool.
Does it?
Yeah.
Okay, so if anybody's interested, there you go. Anything else? Any questions for Doreen? Any comments? If not, boy, we Okay, superintendent's report. Stephen did send his superintendent's report, I think just yesterday, if I remember correctly, and you can look it up. So I don't know if anybody had any questions or comments about that. And I don't know, Frank, if you had anything to share from Stephen specifically in his report.
Copies of his report, if anyone would like a hard copy.
I'll take one. I'm trying to think. Do I really?
Anyone else?
Keep file? I didn't print.
I'll take one too.
Okay.
Thank you. Oops, sorry. This is Stephen's report that he sent out yesterday. And in fact, just so a quick reminder of the superintendent's report, this is the new style where he's sending the same report to all boards. He's not targeting specifically Leland and Gray or any other town, which I think has been working out pretty well for him and taking a lot less of his very valuable time to do this, although it still takes time. And I appreciate him doing it. Anything else from Stephen? Okay, if not, we're on to you, Frank.
Okay, a couple of updates. The annual report is coming together. Offhand around, we have 3 copies of a draft. It's a very rough draft. We typically, did you want to join the lunch counter over here?
There's one for you to look at. That's the one you guys keep that one? Yeah. I haven't seen the written one, but I've seen it.
So I just made 3. There is another one if anyone would like to have the master. So the annual report, we always push pretty hard to get it out to the printer this time of year so we can get it in front of our voters. We distribute it to post offices, the town offices, the elementary schools, the general stores in our 5 towns. And so if anyone would like to give us feedback on a little proofing exercise, we're always welcoming that input.
Great.
Also, what's within the report is the draft audit. And I have reported on the audit previously. There is no change from what we expected. And we will schedule a review with the CPA right before the annual meeting in February. So for those of you that would like to join us for that review, that will be generally the hour before the annual meeting starts.
Right, so that's February 5th.
February 5th, and I will also invite our elected auditors to join us, as we always do. The other report item is that we have finally ratified, all of the boards have ratified the teacher contract, and we are in the process of implementing the plan, which means retroactive checks and revised contracts and so on. So that's being addressed in the month of January. So there's a couple other items later in the agenda that I can speak to. Oh yes, one other very nice report I could have shared under correspondence. We had a donation from Deidre Bragg. She's the daughter of Arthur Darden. $5,000 donation to Leland and Gray's Trust Fund as part of the Arthur Darden Scholarship Fund. So we're very pleased to have received that, and it's to support our students as they leave Leland and Gray. The family had made a donation a few years ago for $5,000, so now we have a $10,000 fund for scholarships.
That's wonderful.
It is really terrific. Arthur was a graduate of Leland and Gray many years ago, and credits his successful career, his ability to get into University of Vermont as part of his education here. So that's a little bit of the story. And that's it for now.
Okay. Questions or comments for any of the 3 reports? If not, we'll move on. Okay, we're at old business. So this is the only item we have under old business is consider warning, and it says F24.1, but it's actually F30, am I right?
That's correct.
The bullying policy. Now, this was emailed to you, and I think the last one that Stephen sent with his corrections was the correct one. Am I right? He sent it to the full board. So I don't know if you brought copies or...
Well, we were thinking, I didn't remember, we're not in the copier room, but I do have one copy that he had sent with me.
Okay, so I don't know if anybody wants a paper copy, but I know it was emailed.
What was emailed was correct,
Right.
Other than the number.
Right, so that was the only change that we made on it. Stephen had made changes, I actually copied it too, but, because he handed it to me. He had made changes based on feedback he got from the DOE. Before, that was before, there was a piece of correspondence between you and Stephen regarding the first one you sent out to Stephen and I to distribute to the board. He had already showed me the one where he had made changes. So it was slightly different from the one that we received or that we were told about before. So
It said in the body of this email what the changes were, as I recall.
I'm sorry?
He said in the body of his email what he had changed.
He did. He actually did say it. They were very minor. I told him to go ahead and, I'm trying to find his, I think it was attached to his agenda, am I right?
Yeah.
Because I was actually standing beside...
Friday.
Right, it was Friday because I was standing beside Stephen when he was doing that.
Said, do you want me to read what I
That'd be great because I'm pulling it.
So he says the bullying policy has 2 minor changes following the advice of legal counsel at DOE, now AOE. Collective bargaining agreements on page 4 is deleted because it is not relevant.
Right.
Sexual assault was changed to assault under BA on page 4 because sexual assault is always defined as harassment.
Correct. That's what he should told me. He told me about both those. And that was it, right?
Yep.
Okay, so they were pretty minor changes and they came right from the DOE. So the report that was sent, the bullying policy that was sent to you with that said F24.1 was the correct version. It's what we're looking to warn for adoption tonight, except that we will be warning it as F30 because that's what the VSBA number is on it, and we're trying to stay with those numbers so that everybody's using the same policy numbers. So is there anything?
I looked at the 2 policies, the harassment of students and bullying, and they're essentially the same. And there was a cover letter from the commissioner, I guess secretary now, that says that they try to bring them as close as possible to one another so that it would be simplest and most effective in implementation, and I think rising to the level of seriousness as harassment. So Leland and Gray is already ready to carry this out, and it's very similar to what we already do.
Okay. Great. Any comments or questions? We can actually...
I don't understand how sexual assault is always defined as harassment.
Yeah. It's not up to me to make that determination. You guys
Legal thing, it's not bullying.
may have a comment on that. Right.
And we would call it, I mean, if it happened at, under the jurisdiction of Leland and Gray, would be considered assault, and there would be much more involved than just, that I won't say than just harassment, but in addition to harassment.
So it's basically that way in the bullying policy because it's not bullying, it's addressed elsewhere. Is that the point of making this change to the policy?
Yeah, because if you hit somebody, that's part of our discipline policy that's separate from this, but this is including assault in that. That's how I see it.
Okay.
It's amazing how many policies a student can violate in one shot.
There's a lot of overlap.
Well, we have like a checklist on the behavior referrals. It was a yellow and an orange and a red.
All right, well, I will move to warn policy F30,
F30. Thank you.
to be adopted at our next meeting.
Okay, and so is there a second? All right, it's been moved and seconded. Jeremy seconded. So are there any other comments or questions about this policy, which is actually mandated?
Is the whole thing mandated the way it is? Because this is one of the ones that...
I believe it's just
had this
mandated
come to
that we have one. We could
had
write
this
our
come
own,
to the policy committee, we
somebody else had to work for us already.
said, here's policy, and a whole bunch of this is procedure, that we tried not to get put in as policy because it was so onerous to change. I mean, the policy is that we don't allow bullying. How we deal with the bullying once it happens is really more of a procedure than a policy, and we tried to pull that all out. So there's a whole lot in here that if it's not mandated that it be policy, probably makes sense to call it recommended procedure and change it so that you can adapt. You don't have to come to the board to change a procedure, but you do to change a policy. So once this is all policy, everything in here, including the notices you give to parents every semester, has to happen or you have to tell us.
We're prepared to do that. I mean, we already have to do that for the harassment one.
And from what I understand,
We pulled a lot out of that, though, too, and made it here's the policy, here's the procedures.
Well, here's what I would share with you that Stephen has said to me all along. With these mandated policies, which this one we all know, whether it's, absolutely mandated word for word or whatever, it's a policy that we need to have in place. I think it makes it a lot easier for Stephen if we're all adopting the same policy around at least our SU. And that's one of the reasons why he's been pretty adamant about trying to follow VSBA's recommendations on the policies that we're actually dealing with. Most of them are the mandated policies, but we also have recommended policies. This one, I believe, is under the mandate head. So I just think it makes it easier for him not to have a different policy in each school district. And Frank, you may have a comment about what Stephen may say about that too, but it just makes it more simple if
I think
approving the same.
I think to Joe's point, though, it's so much of this is prescribed in terms of protocol that the administration must follow. So even though it does seem like it's procedure, as somebody says, if we standardize procedure across the SU and then recognize that a lot of this is prescribed, in this case, it is a little bit different than what we try to do in other policy arenas, where we leave administrative discretion, to respond to the circumstances.
And this came out of a law this year, right?
Yeah.
So, it was pretty, I didn't actually read the law, but the law was that we all adopt a policy. In fact, I think it needed to be done this month. So.
We still have a SU policy committee?
We do have an SU policy committee, and in fact, once everybody, there's been some talk, you may not be at all the SU meetings, but there is talk about maybe restructuring the way we operate at the SU level, and in the process, we're looking at there's a committee that's looking at the WCSU bylaws, which are both bylaws for the SU board and for the executive committee board. Once those are done, there's a recommendation that we actually operate more by what our bylaws state today, and that is that the executive committee at that level can, they represent the full board on almost everything and can do that. We've sort of gotten away from doing that in the last few years, but it's been very difficult for us to get quorums. So in the conversation that we had at our last couple of meetings at the WCSU level, we've talked about bringing back the policy committee at that level. We still appoint someone every year to that. It's just that Stephen doesn't call it to order very often at all because it's sort of redundant. But we're thinking maybe once we rewrite our bylaws that might not be so redundant, and we'll be able to utilize a policy committee at the SU level a lot more, especially now that we don't have an active policy committee at our board. It might be useful. So I don't know if that answers what you're getting at.
I was just thinking that there's always been a committee that reviewed all these and answered the questions that Joe's asking before it came to us.
Right. And, let me share that at the SU level, or feel free to come to the SU meetings. I'm actually on the committee to rewrite the bylaws, and I'm going to keep that in mind because I think that's important. I really do, and I'll make sure that we bring that up when we're talking about bylaws. Maybe there's something we can write into the bylaws. And Frank, I don't know if you're going to participate at that, but you've been invited to that meeting too. I think it's in February, maybe 7th or something. Maybe we can make sure that we look at policy as part of that rewrite of the bylaws. It's a really good suggestion. I think we need to be paying attention to that. It's really an important thing. It's what we do, write policy, so and approve policy. So.
But you're absolutely right about separating the procedures, and it all comes back to the norms.
Yeah.
And I have it up.
Right.
But I feel like we're ready to go with this, and it does say that we have to, what we adopt has to be at least as stringent as the model policy. And,
I just wanted to ask the question.
Yeah, I think it's a good question, and again, it's like Mike's. I think we need to keep that in mind, and maybe you could share that with Stephen as well. That we feel like we actually are engaged in the process of policy writing, because we should be. Okay, any other comments or questions about anything specific in here, or not specifically? If not, then we will vote on the motion to warn policy F30, prevention of bullying, policy on prevention of bullying students. Okay, you ready to vote? All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
And opposed? Any abstentions? Okay, motion passes. So you still have time, in the review process, we'll be adopting this at our next meeting. And I don't know whether we'll do that on the 30th or not. We do have a very short meeting before the information meeting on the 30th. I'll ask Stephen whether he's ready to do it. If they get it posted, we actually have time. Because there's a 15-day, I think, of posting for policies. Okay. Anything else under all business? There's nothing on the agenda, but I don't know if there's... If not, we move on to new business. And now, Doreen, that's yours, setting limits for school choice. I'll turn that over to you.
So I don't know how aware you are of the legislation that passed last spring, essentially eliminating the regional school choice agreements that were set up between supervisory unions that Leland and Gray has used, maybe 15 years? And we have accepted up to 10 students from towns that don't have school choice to attend free of charge. And the sending schools keep those students as part of their ADM. We don't get any tuition for them. My first year here, we had 11 students. Or should I say my second year here, we had 11 students instead of 10. And Stephen got additional approval from another SU to allow for that. And then this current year, we had accepted 15 students in light of the new, I would say, recommendation that came from Commissioner Villaseca. Then the legislature weighed in, and they actually passed a law. What do they call it?
I think it's Act 129.
Yes, yep. And where they say these are the guidelines that you must follow. And it very much expands the school choice options in which the funding does not follow the students. And so what a school board can do is place limits on the number of students who transfer to Leland and Gray. We're supposed to allow 30, but we could ask to receive fewer. What we can't do is allow fewer students to leave. So we need to allow up to 30 students to transfer out of Leland and Gray if they're accepted at another school through the school choice process. And now that includes essentially every public school in Vermont, not just the region. So the regional agreement we had with Brattleboro and Windsor, and stretched pretty far, that those borders no longer exist. And they have a chart here based on the size of your school to how many that you can allow to go. So for next year, we actually, it goes to 30, where it sort of gradually comes in. But for next year, we're supposed to allow up to 30 to leave. The reason why I don't want to allow 30 to come in and would like to limit it to 20 is because it will have a big impact on class size. We have our classes are full, I think bigger than what perhaps people were accustomed to in the past. The core academic classes, for the most part, will have anywhere between 20 and 27 students in the classes. And because they now all need algebra, they all need geometry, there's seniors, 75% of them take science, and one of the most important reasons for my recommendation, this is a school board decision, but is that if we had 30 rather than 20, so 10 additional students, it would have a big impact on the number of sections of science courses we'd have. Right. Because we went from 18 per class, now we did the a survey of the room size. We could actually be more like 21 or 22, but that's it. And so if we have 30 students, all who need to take a required science class, introduction to chemistry and physics, astronomy, chemistry and physics in 9th grade, or biology in 10th grade, we would have to have another section, and our teachers are maxed out already in science. So we don't have space for it. So that's really where the greatest impact would be felt, that I don't think we can absorb. So that's my basis for the recommendation. We have had maybe 2, tops 3 students choose to attend another school, apply to attend another high school through school choice. So we've always had more, I shouldn't say always, but the time I've been here, we've had significantly more students coming to Leland and Gray rather than transferring out.
Right.
Okay.
So these students, for example, you said this year there's 15 students who are here.
15 applied and 10 are here.
And can you say which towns they're from?
Yes, Athens, Grafton, and a student from Wilmington. Wilmington or Whitingham, I can't remember. But it's primarily Athens and Grafton. Like, they'll start here in grade 7, go to the middle school because they have choice in those 2 towns for middle school, and then they'll choose to stay.
Rather than go to Bellows Falls, which is their own. And these same numbers apply to larger schools?
No.
Like Brattleboro?
It gets larger. For next year, it goes, so 1,000 students, let's say, or 500 students, it goes to 30 for each one of them. And then gradually they'll go, like 2 years from now, it'll go all the way to 40. But for us, it remains 30 across. So proportionally, it's how they came up with the numbers, I couldn't tell you, but proportionally speaking, they would have much less impact than we did.
And one more question. You said that this year there were 3 students who left Leland and Gray to go to other schools?
Maximum, maybe 2.
Do you know how many applied and how many actually went?
I think the ones who applied went. It's very rare that I get the form that I need to sign for a student to apply elsewhere. And my first year here, someone was gone the first semester and then was back the second semester. So sometimes it's kind of experimental.
So, Duran, you just said if someone is choosing to apply to another school, you're the one who has to sign a form.
Yeah.
So no one's applying without your knowledge. So. To another school. Not through school choice.
Right.
Right. Okay.
I mean, that would be a current Leland and Gray student.
Right.
Yeah. And
Exactly.
School choice only applies for 9 through 12 anyway.
Right. Right. Other questions? School choice. So what? I have one, I guess. So we're required to approve your recommendation for? Is that what this?
The school board would set a limit.
Okay, so you're giving a recommendation to us to set a limit of 20.
Yep.
Up to
The 20 coming in.
20 coming in, and 30 can leave. Am I right?
Yep.
Isn't it 20 can leave as well?
No.
Oh, they don't match the...
No.
Okay.
You cannot. You can allow more students to leave.
Okay.
The transfer limits are minimums.
And the money does not follow the student. The money
No.
goes to wherever the student lives.
That's right. It's not, it's not a block grant. It's not like a check comes in from the state. They get to count those students on their equalized student, and when you divide cost divided by number of students, you lower the tax rate because of the way the tax rate's calculated. So it really, it's nothing to do with money following like a tuition student. It's a matter of how you calculate the tax rate, and it creates relief the more students you have.
It'll be interesting if we hit the upper limit anytime soon, and then are successful with our recruitment efforts, whether it's overseas students or out of local students, then we'll have this class size problem to deal with regardless.
yes. But when we have students who are paying tuition, then we have more revenue to work from, including the students from China.
So you potentially might hire an additional staff person.
Right.
Potentially.
Right. And the time frame is that the students are given notification in April.
Right.
So, and we have a whole internal procedure about how so we would know. So, for example, I know we approved 15 back last April, but only 10 are here. Another thing is that Leland and Gray previously had given preference to siblings. We had 2 lotteries, one for the siblings and one, actually it was only twice once we had to do a lottery. That's where the 11th came in, but who didn't actually make the cut. But the legislation doesn't allow for that anymore. The only provision that would be, it says a board shall give preference to the transfer request of a student whose request to transfer from the school was denied in a prior year.
So the only preference would be someone who'd applied and been denied. And siblings aren't in that.
And it was
Unless they've applied before.
Now, when I look at the guide,
Once they're here, do they have to reapply?
The assumption is
So
they're here for
somebody that we decline 1 year can't come and bump out somebody that's already here.
correct.
I guess that's what I'm getting at.
Yes,
Okay.
that's correct.
Yeah, that's a good question.
Yep, and it says school boards are required to make annual capacity determinations on or before February 1st. This will ensure, and Stephen will need to report to the state what our program capacity is.
So the notification of this, I'm assuming that this will be put on the website or whatever, and how do we go about notifying? Beyond, of course, our minutes will show.
So there's something already in the newsletter, just
Okay, good.
not about limitations, just about the school choice option. And Stephen informed me that in consultation with other superintendents that their extent of promotion will be on their websites to explain the process as it currently is at Leland and Gray. We'll just update it.
Okay.
I'll move to limit our inbound school choice student acceptance to 20.
Second that.
Do we need to do them separately? Do we say the outgoing?
We don't need to vote on the other one
Okay.
because we're unless you want to accept more.
Right, so as long as...
Sorry, unless we want to allow more to transfer.
Okay, so as long as we're okay with the 30, we don't need that as part of the motion. Sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you guys. Okay, so the motion is to approve limiting to 20.
I mean,
Income.
it's my recommendation. Steve and I talked about it a long time. Melanie Zielinski was part of that discussion. So I'm very open to hear why this is a bad idea.
Okay.
No, it makes sense. You
So
don't want
it's
your
been
classes any
seconds.
bigger. I mean, our classes are already pretty big. It doesn't really make sense to add more students when you're trying to, prove academic achievement. It seems like that wouldn't be in the best interest, right?
That's my thinking, particularly in the required courses. If they came as seniors to do lots of electives, that would be a different story. But they generally come in as 9th graders after having finished 8th grade.
Right.
It seems like 20 is a pretty high number for what might be even feasible.
Yeah.
And, 20 is a lot. They come in, you think, in general? Possibly.
Yeah, it could be 4 per grade.
For a school
Did I
our
get that right?
size? That's
5 per grade.
I mean, in 1 year, could you imagine like 20 coming in, and then you had 5 tuition students, and then you had your 12 Chinese students? That would be like, you couldn't handle that, right? Could you handle that many additional students? It would depend what.
Well, the tuition paying.
Yeah, that because
I can
then you
speak
might.
for that. We would
yeah.
absolutely handle it. Without a doubt, we'd handle it.
Because you would add another staff.
But it's possible we would have to, have additional support. Yeah, it's interesting. I mean, that's when the job of the principal is critical as a leader, to make that decision and determination on how to handle the scheduling and how many staff per student for courses. different coursework.
And then, of course, like I said, we thought 15 were coming, and 2 weeks into the school year, we have 10.
Right.
So
Yeah.
students make different decisions, especially when they're coming from outside the community.
Just as a comment on this, it's good to me that we're talking about that kind of a problem, regardless of whether the money follows those students or not. It's great that we have an academic program and all the other co-curricular programs that are attractive to students wanting to come here, and it's good to be able to have the conversation that we're worried about whether we can do it with the staff we have. So I'm pleased about that. And I think it's a compliment to you, Doreen, and to your staff.
Thank you. We feel
Good.
that we have very few students requesting to go elsewhere.
Yeah, that's great. That's great, and I think that's only going to improve.
But, the economic conditions being what they are, we're always going to have families moving out of the area for job reasons. And that's unpredictable. You can't predict that.
And unfortunate.
And that's regardless of tuition, not tuition. It's just Windham County remains one of the slower areas in the state, so.
In
In the country, in the Northeast, I mean. Yeah.
It is true. And Governor Shumlin knows that very well. I'm hoping that, I'm looking forward to hearing what the initiatives are that are on the table this year to help improve that, because I do think that's going to have to be at the top of a policy agenda. Needs to be addressed. No question.
But not by us.
Pardon me?
But not by us.
No,
No. I'm not suggesting, but we should give our feedback if we have thought. Okay, so any other comments or questions about school choice? The motion was to approve limiting 20 coming in. Okay, so if there's no other questions, all those in favor of the motion, please say aye.
Aye.
And opposed? Any abstentions? Okay, motion passes. Thank you, Doreen.
Thank you.
Discuss school district. Oh yeah, I asked Stephen to put this on here. I think we only have 2 board members who are up this year, and Jay, you're one of them, and the other one is Bruce. And unfortunately, I think I sent an email telling you all that Bruce is up at the Red meeting up in Jamaica tonight. And I'm thrilled that he and Stephen both were able to attend that meeting. But I actually, because he's not here, I haven't had a chance to even ask him. But I just wanted to make sure that we're checking to make sure people are running for their positions, and if they're not, I also wanted to bring up, if they're not, we need to be talking about that, making sure that we get the word out, word needs to get to the communities. And also I wanted to bring up the issue we have with Brookline again, who still has not filled the position, and if anybody had any thoughts, they do still vote from the floor, am I right? In Brookline, so it's right up until town meeting day that we can encourage anyone that you guys may know from the town of Brookline to put their name in, but we've been short a board member from Brookline for a very long time, and officially we've been short a board member for a full year now, and that's unfortunate, I think. So I just wanted to make sure we brought that up. So Jay, are you running?
No.
You are not running? Definitely not. Boy, that was so sudden.
He thought about it.
Okay, so we need to be thinking
You're not
about...
running, are you staying?
Excuse me?
It's a joke.
It was actually a good one. We said, if you're not running, are you staying? So I don't know whether you've thought about talking to anybody else, but we should probably be making sure that we get the word out that there's a new FANA opening. I was hoping we weren't going to have any turnover. We've had such a good board for so long. But I'm sure, we'll figure out a way to replace you. But it'll be too bad. You've been a great board member, and I don't think we'll ever be able to replace you down on the Windham Regional Career Center board. Because you're the first one who's ever filled that position in the way that you have filled it.
Oh, really?
Yeah, I mean, it's really hard for people to attend those meetings, and it's been great that you've been participating at that level, so the rest of the board's going to get leaned on again. Stephen will be very disappointed. So I'm sorry to hear that, Jay, really, but I do thank you for all your time. And if you change your mind, you have until the end of the month. to put a petition in. And for those of you who know, in Newfane, needs to be a petition put in. Does anybody know the date? I don't know the exact date, but it's the last.
End of January.
Yeah, it's like the
30th.
30th or something. It's different every year. It's like a Thursday or something. I can't remember the date, but there is a date specific when you have to return a petition. So if anybody has any ideas of anybody who may be interested, need to get that out. And maybe we should notify the new school board too. Maybe I'll send an email, or unless you want to Kim Friedman, just to let them.
I can send her.
That'd be great. That'd be great, because they may have, I know they're having some trouble on their board as well.
Yep.
And I wanted to make sure that Bruce, we have to check with Bruce too to find out whether he's running, but I'm hoping he will be.
I haven't heard that he is in Leland.
Luckily, they're the only two that are up this year.
I know. I'm well aware of it.
Well, if you change your mind, I'll sign your petition.
Okay.
Should have brought that petition tonight. If I had grabbed a petition, I could have convinced him maybe to stick it in front of them, but we still have a little time.
We could download one.
We could download one, that's true. All right. Any other comments about elections? If not,
January 28th.
oh, thank you. 28th.
Deadline for Newfane is the 28th.
Okay, great. But that was quick. So keep that in mind for Newfane. If anybody has, they have to be put in. Otherwise, it's like Jeremy came on the board, it'll need to be an appointment. And then the appointment is for the 1 year, and then you have to run for abbreviated, which is what you did last year.
The Newburgh School has a pretty active website these days too, and they put out on the website that they need a school board member, but that would be something that you may be able to get to the parent community.
Yeah, and if Jay contacts them, and if he really is serious about getting off the board, I'm not letting him go easy. If he really decides he's serious about getting off the board, they may be willing to add that to theirs, because honestly, it has to be under their warning.
Yeah.
The town school district warning in the annual report, that's where the candidate or candidates for the high school position as well as the elementary position are under their warning, because we all vote Australian ballot. And so they may be willing to add that to their website, which would be helpful.
Do you want this on Leland and Gray's website?
It would be great if we could. Let's confirm with Bruce too, though, so we can say all of it at once. So I'll
And
check.
it can go into Monday or Friday notes as well, so that an email
Perfect.
can be received by everyone.
That'd be
if you
great.
wanted to write a note to them, for example, in your, school board chair style.
Yeah, I think probably it's best to just put the information out and hope people, especially when it's different towns from the one I happen to live in. But I'm pretty sure Bruce would have told me, I think, if he wasn't going to. He's pretty actively involved right now, and he's actually put his name in to be on, which committee is it? The bylaws committee, I think. So I think he wouldn't have put his name in for a committee if he wasn't interested in running. So it may be just yours if you are going to get off.
Do you want to send me a confirmation?
I will. I'll check with Bruce first, and then we'll do that. Okay. Thank you.
I have something to check. When you get a second.
Yes.
Okay, so while you're doing that, the other piece here is, and Frank, I don't know if you talked to Stephen about this last one, but I brought it up at one of our last meetings. Stephen and I talked about this, board members' ideas for the work of the board in the future, and we had discussed very briefly, and I don't want to get into a deep discussion about this tonight. Stephen just wanted us, let's get it on the agenda tonight, we'll open it up, and then we'll have a bigger conversation later. But in case there was turnover on the board this year, we kind of thought this is the board that should have this conversation about, for example, whether we want to revisit our school board goals. It's been, it'll be, I hate to say it, but I think, am I right? 3 years into it by September? 2. So we may need to think about whether we want to just revisit those. We didn't do a retreat last year. We typically do one. It's just really helpful if we're going to do long-term planning that we think about it early and sort of do, my suggestion was to do kind of an annual plan for things that the board felt were important topics to discuss. I mean, we haven't been lucky enough to have a principal in place for this many years, and I said this to Stephen when the same thing happened at the SU level, having a superintendent for as many years as we've had him now. It gives us sort of the opportunity to look a little farther out and work, closely with you, supporting what your goals are for Leland and Gray. So if there's something that the board can do to help Leland and Gray move forward, we should be having that conversation and thinking, farther out for planning. So I don't know if you guys had any thoughts or whether the board has any thoughts, but
I think especially in consideration to the comment that you made about potential declining enrollment, that's already happened. So declining for years at this point, from the high of 440 8 years ago or so to the about 370
over the last 10 years,
we have now.
As it is across the state, it's 104,000 kids in the state, and now we're down to 82,000. Yeah, we're just a reflection of that. Yeah.
So actually, our decline isn't even as high as the 19% that has been statewide.
Yeah.
Hard to believe.
Mm-hmm.
yeah.
But still, what are we protecting? What are we prioritizing? What do we feel that we need fewer sections of? Because it does have an impact.
Well, related to that, I really hope we can figure out the music thing, because I just do think that is such a critical piece of a kid's education. And I don't think we've made, and correct me if I'm wrong, too much progress on that front. Maybe we're getting off topic here, but we're talking about declining enrollment and the pressure on certain programs. It seems like that's only going to increase with respect to music.
Pressure on music.
Yeah. Would you agree? Irene, what's your thoughts about that? Maybe it's not the place for this, is it?
Well, I don't think we need to be getting into too many details.
But that's been a concern right out of the gate.
Yeah.
I think
it remains a concern.
Right. So that's.
What can we, yeah.
So, I think that makes, she's bringing up a good point, and it may not be. You're mentioning music. I would hate to limit it only to music, because I think any program at Leland and Gray is threatened.
Well, I know, but music has been especially hard hit. If I look at it,
I'm not saying that that's not true, but to keep the conversation a little more broad, I think if we're going to have that discussion about it, we shouldn't limit it to music. We should we should not focus on music. We should, but we should also make sure that we're protecting.
It's just been one of the programs that has taken the brunt.
Yeah.
And it's just such an important piece in so many kids' lives, and how it carries forth.
It'd be a good thing for a board goals discussion.
Yeah, I mean, maybe, perhaps. I don't know what you.
Well, there may be a lot of different reasons for it, and it may be a discussion that we need to have at even an SU level, because I think that the decline is also across the district.
Well, it seems like at the middle school, the course is thriving pretty well, it seems like, it appears. And then they get into that high school schedule, and it's like scheduled out. And I don't know how to address that, and I don't know if you know.
Well, longer school day.
And we have been working on it.
Full year school.
Okay, well, that's comforting to know.
That is very high on the priority list.
Okay.
So it in no way is this neglected, but the reasons are complex and not all I can discuss.
Yeah.
So as candidly as I'd like to.
Okay.
Well, so that, is one idea, and I agree with the whole thing about the declining enrollment. And what I would encourage, we don't have to go too deep into this kind of thing tonight, but what I wanted to do was open it up for us to think about, and for maybe to go back and come back to the meeting in February with some concrete ideas about priorities, goals. And I don't mean only the board, the administration should also think about that too, so that we can sort of look, what are we going to do this year? And do we need, maybe, does everybody have copies of the school board goals? Because we can resend that if people want, if you don't know where your copy is. I mean, I've got it right here. But I mean, we probably should be.
Can I put that in the minutes,
It's the two-page document that came out of our They're the 3 goals that came out of our September 18th, 2011 board retreat. And we really should be, I think, at least...
That lovely site.
We should be at least looking at those at some point.
And I report on them annually.
I know you do, but I'm saying for the board, it's great that you're reporting on it, but we need to probably revisit our own goals.
Probably should do that.
We probably should, and I think we had that conversation a little bit last year, and we kind of decided that, doing working hard and reporting out on them, and so we felt that you were readdressing your action steps around the goals, so we thought that was enough, but I think it might be time for us in the next year to relook at these. So I will get my electronic copy. One of us has an electronic copy, and mine's a little dog-eared because I carry the paper one around with me, but get that out to all of you, and then maybe ask that you all think about thoughts for what we'd like to be accomplishing in the next year, because it's really important that we do accomplish something.
And on the second page, there's a list of other goals that were not considered immediate, but still goals for us. And revisiting that, I think, would be a really good start. Saying, okay, have we gotten to a place where we feel comfortable with setting our immediate goals aside? I actually would say no. But especially around mathematics literacy and science and the level of rigor that we need in every grade for every student. So,
but I'm looking at
parts.
Yeah, there's other priorities here, and Dion just brought up her thought about music, and that's not listed in here. So those are the kinds of things we might want to bring into that document, so we can maybe move forward with vigor in the new year. Does that sound okay? So
Yes, absolutely.
I'll send that out to everybody. It's on the electronic copy. You all remember that I damaged my hard drive, so I may have to lean on somebody else for. Ever since August, I keep missing documents that were on that other hard drive, and I still haven't recovered it. So if I don't have it electronically, maybe you do. So.
And I'll just add that having school board goals aids my work tremendously. I can refer to them with faculty members, with parents, explaining the purpose of academic support, the reason why the classes are harder than they had expected, the need for the student to remain working at grade level, because if we lower the standards, they're going to graduate essentially behind their class, even if they had graduated, but without the level of skill that their own peers were able to learn. The whole conversation about acceleration that came from us in our retreat.
And 2 other things that I should probably comment about here, and that is one that we're starting to engage in a process with the Wyndham Southwest Supervisory Union to look at an analysis of the 2 SUs to think about what we can do maybe to collaborate with them in one form or another. And in the process of that, we are going to be hiring an outside consultant to come in, and that outside consultant is somebody you're all very familiar with, and that's Ray Prue. And if Ray happens to be in the area, we're thrilled to be able to use his services, and I know Wyndham Southwest is as well, because he's a wonderful asset to all of us. And if maybe in the time that he's down here working with others, maybe we could engage him for us for another retreat or something. So think about timing as well when you're thinking about specific goals. Think about the timing, and I would ask you to do that too, Doreen, because your schedule is so focused, I know, all the time. So maybe if we were going to work on goals or a plan, when would be best for your schedule to be able, because we would want to engage with you in that process. So when we come back, maybe you could share your thoughts on that. Okay?
Generally, plan it out further out, more likely to be able to be there, so I can plan around it. So
well, we aren't going to do it without you, so.
no, but seriously, if you were thinking in April or May, or even, yeah, that would be a good time.
So let's have that conversation at the next meeting about timing as well as content. Okay, thank you. Thanks for having that conversation. It's important. All right, approving bills and payers. I see they're still looking at them. So we'll hold off. Should we hold off just a little bit? You guys probably aren't ready.
Yeah, we're still.
Okay. We can do the consent agenda, though. So we have pulled out the minutes of 12, 11, 12 out of here, and we'll approve those at our next board meeting, which is on the 30th. We'll talk about that in a minute. So we need to approve the consent agenda. Somebody wants to...
Move to approve the consent agenda.
Okay. Is there a second?
Second.
All right, so we're moving second to approve the consent agenda. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
And opposed? Abstentions? Okay, that passes, and we'll do this at our next meeting. So we do have an executive session we need to do, and that's, this is actually the next round of negotiations. This is our support staff. So we just ratified our contract with the teachers, and now this is, but we have a contract that we have a tentative agreement on. We've had a tentative agreement on this one since July, am I right, Frank?
Yeah.
And the reason we haven't voted on this one was because it was contingent on the approval of the other one. Now that the other one has been ratified, the master contract's been ratified, now we can actually approve this one too. So do you want to go, should we go into executive session now to do that? Now, am I right? Is there's no one on here who has a problem with, we can have everybody in the executive session. Okay, because we need to bring everybody up to date on that. And when we come out, I'm just trying to think of, we will probably either make a motion or not to ratify. Is that correct? That's what the
That's our
outcome
hope,
is
yes.
of this.
But you would.
And so for
You want me to wait to do the public hearing?
boy, what's the, how far off are we on that? I'm wondering if we can just send that with you. If I just write it down, we don't have an extra copy of it, and I can't make another one, but,
Well, or is your conversation about the the agreement a long conversation, generally speaking?
I don't know, Frank. Do you think it's going to be in a long executive
I don't think
session?
so.
He doesn't think so.
Retroactive increase.
Okay, if you want to wait, it'll give them time to finish reviewing the bills. and
We're
orders.
getting close here.
I don't think you should be very long.
Just make sure.
No, I think that
Plenty of work. Okay, so then I guess we should make a motion to go into executive session to discuss contract negotiations, the tentative agreement.
So moved.
And is there a second?
Second.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded, and you're writing all that down?
Yes. Then I'll load Tara 2 minutes.
Yeah, but this one.
Okay, so then people are going to...
Okay, all those in favor of the motion to go into executive session, please say aye.
Aye.
And opposed? Abstentions? Okay, we're... In the regular session, executive session, we want to make a motion?
Well, I move that we ratify the tentative agreement between the Wyndham Central Supervisory Union, SU 46, Board of Directors, Leland and Gray High School District 34 Board of Directors, blah, 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 the Wyndham Central Education Association that will run from July 1st, 2012 to June 30th, 2014.
You need to say educational support staff contract.
Yeah, that.
This is the part that's...
The Educational Support Staff Unit contract.
Perfect. Okay, it's been moved, as recommended. Do we want to add in as recommended before we second it? As recommended by the tentative agreement from the...
Yeah, Mike had that in front.
Oh, you have that in front?
Yeah.
I'm sorry, I didn't hear it. Did you get that, Tara?
Not entirely.
Let's, Joe seconded it, so let's have you read it back. Right, you did?
Sure, yes.
I thought I heard you
I did.
do that. I was trying to cut you off because I wasn't sure he had added the whole thing to it. So let's have her read it back to us.
I don't have enough of it. I mean, move to ratify the tentative agreement between...
Here, I read the front of this.
All right, I can do that.
It actually just needs to be between us, I think. And but it doesn't need, you don't need all the top stuff because it's just Leland Gray who's doing this vote. We'll do the rest. So what we're doing is we're ratifying the educational, the contract for the educational support staff unit. That's what it says. As recommended by the Negotiating committee. That was what you said, right?
Yeah.
I'll wait till you're ready, Tara, before we...
Okay, ready.
You want to
Read it again?
You sure? That'd be great.
So, to ratify the tentative agreement between the Leland and Gray High School District 34 Board of Directors and the Wyndham Central Education Association. That's not right. We have to put agreement, well, you figure out to put educational support staff unit as recommended by the negotiating committee.
It definitely needs to have that piece in it.
I know, I mean, I have it, it doesn't make any sense.
When you're reading it to yourself.
Hey, Jay. Don't do this one together.
The agreement between the two parties regarding the education.
So it's, yeah, that's what we need to-
So it's just the WCEA Educational Support Staff Unit.
There's another one here.
Oh,
See what I'm
so
saying?
support staff unit is part of
Exactly. Yes.
modification, okay.
That's the
so fine.
It's the WCEA Support Staff Unit.
Okay, got it. So that's fine. So to ratify the tentative agreement between the Leland Gray High School District 34 Board of Directors and the Wyndham Central Education Association Educational Support Staff Unit as recommended by the negotiating committee.
Correct. Okay. So it's been moved and it's been seconded. So are there any other comments or questions? If not, oh, do we have the date on that? He did say the
Oh,
date. If
yeah.
you didn't, I mean, his motion actually said the date.
Yep.
July 1st, 2012 to June 30th, 2014. That's the part of it. Okay, so if everybody's comfortable with the motion, you all understood it and heard it in a second? Okay. All those in favor of the motion, please say aye.
Aye.
And opposed? Any abstentions? Okay, motion passes. Thank you. That's the first one of four that needs to be done, Frank. Am I right? We'll move forward with the rest. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. So, the only thing we have left is, let's do the bills and pay orders. Okay, we've got, I'm not going to read these again. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 general fund warrants for $555,335.67, and we have 3 payrolls, number 27, 28, and 29, for $194,341.05. Total warrants and payrolls are $749,676.72. Need a motion from one of these?
Goes to this, right?
Yes.
So moved.
Okay, it's been moved. Is there a second?
Second.
Okay, so moved and seconded to approve the warrants and payrolls as read and as reviewed. I think have they been reviewed by 2 people and all signed?
Yes.
Any comments or questions?
I just have one.
Okay.
This one here, Frank. I don't have a home for this one.
Okay, looks like the internet bill, so you definitely want to pay that.
Yeah, we can pay that. So let's make sure that gets in there before we vote.
This it was not on the list either.
And while he's looking at that with him, I think I saw fiber going into the more free library new thing today.
If we could just add,
So I'm thinking,
if we could just add the 1,508.71 to that list, and we'll approve it, and then
okay.
if Carolyn
Been
just
moved and
check, we'll add the check.
seconded. Does somebody want to make, well, we can just do it. Should we do another one, or shall we amend the motion?
Move to add.
You can move to amend the motion to add,
Move to amend the motion for 1508.71.
is that the amount?
Yes.
Okay. Okay, it's been moved to amend the motion to add 1508.71 into a warrant. Is there a warrant number on that one? It doesn't really matter. It's a separate warrant, I guess. Is there a second to that motion?
Second.
Okay, it's been seconded. Any comments or questions? If not, all those in favor of the amendment, please say aye.
Aye.
And all those opposed? Okay. Okay, and no abstentions? All right, motion passes. So now we have to vote on the motion, which includes that piece. Tara, and you have that, you wrote it down because he's actually not got a...
Yeah, no, I wrote it, I typed it, but I'll also just make a note on the paper in case.
Perfect. Perfect, because I want to make sure it does get in there correctly.
150871.
150871, correct. Perfect, thank you. Okay, so the motion, all those in favor of the motion to approve the bills and pay orders as amended, please say aye.
Aye.
And opposed? Abstentions? Okay, motion passes for the bills and pay orders. So next meeting, just double checking with all of you, we could still hold the meeting on the 28th without me, but if you guys are all willing to come on the 30th, we'll do it on the 30th. This is our information meeting. It's just the next night from what we normally do. It's a Wednesday. Stephen recommended we do it that way, and
Yeah, let's do it that way.
I fly in that day. I mean, is there any problem with people being able to come on Wednesday night? It was a night that Stephen had free too, so believe it or not. Okay, so if you can all be here for the 30th, we're gonna, he wrote down here 7 o'clock, but we're gonna meet at 7 for board business in case there's something that pops up. We don't have an agenda set right now, but we thought the extra half an hour. And then our school district meeting is February 5th, and that is at 7:30, but we're going to meet at 6:30 for anybody who wants to come, and I hope some of you will. Actually, we had quite a few of you here for the audit meeting, which is going to take place at 6:30.
That's on the 5th?
And that's on the 5th, the night of the annual meeting, Tuesday night. Frank, I don't know if you know where that will be yet, but
I would say that room A12, as we normally do.
okay, so we'll do room A12, and
Superintendent.
that would be a conference call with
Yeah.
Sullivan and Powers. Okay, and the elected auditors. So does everybody have those dates down? Our regular board meeting is February 12th. Go ahead.
The auditors, I'm sorry. I can't
That's at
understand.
6:30.
What are we auditing?
Well, we have a professional audit done every year, and this is when we review the professional audit with the professional auditors as well as the elected auditors. And so we'll sit down with we'll have our new annual report at that time, and inside there will be our published audit.
And that's what that draft in the last 40
Yeah.
pages are?
Yeah, it's in here.
Fine.
So then we just go over that, and we'll have that ahead of time if anybody has questions or comments. And the Sullivan and Powers typically gives us this overview. Anything else you want to say about it?
Well, relative to the report, not so much the audit, but I think we'll be doing a final file to the printer Friday. So if you have any comments, if you want to forward them to us tomorrow, that would be timely. You know, about grammatical errors or questions that you have. We need to get the editing done basically tomorrow.
Okay, so does anybody want to grab a copy of that and take it home? I know somebody did last year do that. I'm out of town all day tomorrow, and I haven't had a chance to look at it yet, so I hope somebody will review it. Helps to have many eyes
It does,
on
yes.
it. It really does. And the other thing I wanted to just quickly mention, this has got to be on our calendar, but we can probably wait till the February 12th meeting if we can't do it before then, but it has to be done by then, especially with turnover on the board. The superintendent evaluation. I sent out the documents for that. I don't think this is going to take very long for us to do it, but we should probably arrange to come in a half an hour ahead of maybe a meeting or something, unless you want to do it at the end of the meeting. But if we come at 6:30, would that work for everybody on the 12th? I mean, especially if you're all prepared.
February 12th, okay?
Yeah, that's our next regular board meeting.
Yeah.
We meet at 7 that night, so if you came at 6:30, I mean, it's supposed to be here by February 1st. It's supposed to be completed by February 1st and sent to the board chair, but since I happen to be the board chair, I'm going to give us a little waiver, and because I have a month, a little better than a month to compile
I think half
everything.
an hour is enough to do that?
Well, we can do as long as you guys want. I'm just suggesting that. I think it took us about that last year, but we may not have finished it in that time. So you guys tell me what you want for time.
I can come at 6:30. Even a little bit earlier.
I mean, it is possible that if we couldn't complete it by 7, we could reconvene that afterward just to finish
Finish
it
up, yeah.
that night, I guess.
That works.
I don't know if anybody's anticipating a lot on that agenda, but I'm not. Would come from you guys whether there was a lot. People will probably have a hard time coming before 6:30, I would think. That's the only worry I have. Yeah, February 12th. So you wouldn't be able to make it? I'm sorry?
That's fine with me.
6:30? Okay. Should we try that, and then does that work? I mean, if everybody comes prepared, filling out your own, I sent all of you the documentation, and so if you can fill out your form and be ready for comments and stuff, I don't think it should, we're all familiar with the process now? Yeah, that's it. So we do, I think we should be able to get through it fairly quickly. People have been submitting them left and right, so it's obviously on the top of everybody's table. So. Okay, anything else? Nick,
The
go ahead.
January 30th meeting, is that going to be at the library or?
Yeah.
Okay.
That will be the library, am I right, Frank and Doreen? I would think so. We don't, that's our information meeting, and unless there's a double book again, I think the library is where it will be. And the annual meeting is in the main gym still. We never have moved it, although I've always wanted to move it up here to the Dutton gym, but honestly, it's really hard to change. People get so used to, for 30 years or 35 years going to the same gym, it's pretty hard to change everybody. And I honestly worry a little bit about parking if we do it at the top. I don't want people to have to walk up from down below, and I don't want them parking all over the street out here and upsetting the town of Townsend. So that's why we haven't moved it to the Dutton gym, because there's not as much parking around the Dutton gym. But in all truth, we have a lot less people who attend our annual meeting.
Saturday mornings, when they have the 3, 4, and 5, 6 basketball between these two buildings, the parking is insane.
Yeah.
Cars are all over Main Street.
Yeah, and I hate to, yeah. I mean, that's,
Don't worry about the cars.
yeah, that's the youth basketball
Yeah.
league, and I hate to do it for our own annual meeting. So we're still going to meet down in the main gym, but maybe we can have the curtain drawn across so it doesn't seem so huge, because there's not very many people that attend anymore. So, okay, so we can adjourn, but I just want to say thank you to all of you again for your willingness to do a very brief meeting last Friday so that we could add that one item to our warning. And that's been published. I actually haven't seen it. Has anybody seen it in the paper? I haven't seen it, but I do know it was going in because Allison sent me a copy of an email from the Reformer saying they were publishing it. So, and it was posted legally everywhere. So, okay.
Move to adjourn.
All right, been moved and seconded. I'm sure one of you were the second to adjourn. All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. And opposed? Thank you.